Okay, let's begin. Welcome everyone to the live showcase, first time in public, of Leegality Payment Collect. I'm Aditya, Director of Marketing at Leegality, and I'm joined by Sidhanth, our Director of Product. And we'll be dividing this session into three parts. One will be laying down the context of why we built Payment Collect. In the second part, Sid will be showing you a demo of Payment Collect. And in the third part, we'll be discussing a few use cases and benefits of Payment Collect, as well as announcing our free trial and details about that. If you have any questions, please drop it in the Q&A below. Otherwise, feel free to raise your hand at the end of the session, which will be in about 30-35 minutes, and we'll be happy to take your questions. So before I begin, just wanted to quickly introduce Leegality. This is a quick 2-3 minute introduction to a lot of our existing customers on this call or watching this recording. This will be slight repetition. Just bear with me for 2-3 minutes, right? So my apologies. So Leegality exists to solve the paperwork problem, and the problem, contrary to what many think, is not a simple signature issue alone. Having had 1,500 plus companies with over 700 different types of paperwork flows, we have come to understand that paperwork is actually a complex logistics, operations, and compliance exercise with multiple departments working in concert to ensure paperwork gets signed, so to speak. And this is just at the ground level. At the management level, systems and processes need to be set up and monitored daily to ensure that the paperwork process itself, with all its components, is replicated at scale across all offices, branches, and verticals in a compliant manner. And that's where Leegality comes in, right? We built an end-to-end document infrastructure platform that moves beyond just simple e-sign and provides teams with an arsenal of feature sets that are needed to achieve the ultimate goal: digital transformation of paperwork. We aren't interested in simply checking your e-sign tool for the quarter box. We want your teams to actually digitally transform this centuries-old process, and we do that through a comprehensive set of document infrastructure tools in one solution. We're all aware of the direct costs of paperwork: logistics, transport, storage, stuff that we can quantify on a balance sheet. And this is extremely important. We're not denying that. But in our view, it's the indirect costs that really bleed companies way more, right? When teams spend hours a day doing paperwork, for example, that's hours they're spending not doing their core work like sales or customer servicing. You can't really quantify this loss on a balance sheet, but as many of you will know, it's a very real and very tangible cost that your business suffers. With Leegality, we aren't looking to simply paper over these problems or just address the direct costs, although we do that as well. But we're actually looking to turn paperwork from a drag on business into a competitive advantage. With Leegality, you unlock benefits that just wouldn't be possible or conceivable under the old way of doing paperwork. Everything I've just told you is not out of thin air. It comes from years of working with some of India's top companies. We have seen up close the true extent of the paperwork problem and what it takes and the challenges to actually scale up digital paperwork processes. When Indian companies want to actually scale and transform their paperwork processes, they come to Leegality. But that's enough general talk. Let's dive into Payment Collect and why we exactly built it. We're going to show you the demo in a few minutes, but before that, it is extremely important to contextualize why we built it. These few minutes will be vital in giving you clarity on what the feature is and what it can be used for. Fundamentally, it starts from the operational need, right? The concept of document execution is rooted in a compliance need fundamentally. However, we often focus solely on the legal compliance aspect, like is this e-sign type valid? Is this method of stamping legal? And these are very important, but we often just focus on this. But compliance, and especially in the document execution process, often involves operational needs as well. In fact, almost always involves several operational needs. And this is why at Leegality, solving for the operational needs is as important to us as solving for the legal compliance needs, right? Because meeting the operational needs of paperwork on the ground is a core element of our product philosophy. So for example, in many cases, companies needed someone to review a document before it goes out for signing, right? So we built reviewer rules where you can actually add someone who doesn't sign the document, but instead accepts or rejects the document before it goes out for signing. Or in another instance, we received feedback that the buttons on Leegality needed to be in Indian languages so that customers on the ground actually know what buttons they're pressing to move ahead to the next step. So we're building Indian language support. I'm not going to go through all that we've listed here, and I'm not being able to list all the operational features we offer on this one slide. But the point is this: often when adopting digital flows, companies have to twist and turn their existing operations processes to fit a rigid structure offered by whatever technology they are using. With Leegality, you don't have to do this. We have built the infrastructure to incorporate your critical operational needs within your digital flows themselves. And this results in a compliant, digital, and operationally friendly journey where your operational needs are inbuilt into your digital processes without compromising on user experience, right? From the signer's perspective, the flow is the same elegant digital one. Sure, there may be an extra step here or there, say if you ask for supporting documents via Leegality, right? An extra operational step. But the point is this: the end customer and you get a unified flow that you can deploy, a unified flow that your customer or vendor partner can experience in the same environment. However, and this brings us to payment collect, right? Till now, we missed out on a very, very big operational requirement: payments. In the physical document world, companies often used to combine collecting things like processing fees with the document execution leg, right? Like if we are going to meet the customer for signing, we might as well take payment from them. So the attitude was, right? But with Leegality, when companies began to completely eliminate the physical leg in many paperwork journeys, they were left wondering, what do we now do for the payments process, right? It's important to remember that payments, like document execution, is a separate and heavy and important infrastructural problem on its own, right? So in a case where, say, a company goes digital with both payments and documents, what you find is the process breaking into two parallel flows from the back end, where the endpoints of each flow don't really talk to each other. And we'll tell you why this is an issue in a bit. In many cases, companies try to retain their existing payment methods, which could often be physical, where payments are physical but documents are digital. Needless to say, this is an avoidable mess. But really, here we're talking really in the abstract. We've identified 6 core problems that this disconnect between payments and document execution resulted in. And this contextualizes why we built the feature. Sid, I know this was a big part. This had a big part to play in development of the feature. So do you want to shed light on some of these points?
Sure, Aditya. Thanks for setting that context. When we are talking about what's currently broken in collecting payments for companies, right? We obviously have some points listed down here, but if I had to summarize it in one line, it would be that it's a poor experience for customers, that is the people who are actually paying the money, and it's also a poor experience for the company or the enterprise which is collecting payments, right? And to understand this better, let's sort of rewind back to a time not so long ago when payments hadn't really taken a foothold in India, and digitization, more importantly, hadn't taken a foothold in India, right? And let's go back to a time when you had to visit a branch office for getting payments done, or you had to get some documents signed, right? Or you were at an admissions office of a university, right, where you had to pay some token amount or a admissions amount, and also get some paperwork done, right? Now the experience there was one with a lot of touch points, right? You had to go to one person to get your documents in order, you had to go to another person to get a challan, then you had to go to another person or a desk to actually get the payment made, and then you take that receipt back to another person to get the final document, sign it, and then deposit it somewhere else, right? So all of that was not really a great experience for the person concerned, for the customer in this case, right? And it was also not a great experience for the company, right? They had like 5 or 6 people interacting with the customer here. There would be a whole back-end process, a back office process for managing that payments, reconciling payments, etc. Right? So the whole process left a lot to be desired. Customers had to travel to physical offices to actually make payments. If something went wrong, they had to come all over again. All of those challenges were there. Right? So what do you do? Well, digitization was a natural answer, and a lot of people did digitize both their payment flows as well as their document flows, right? So people integrated with a payments gateway, or people integrated with documents infrastructure platforms like Leegality, right? Now, digitization solved a lot of pain points, right? The customer no longer had to travel to a physical location to make the payment or sign the document, but that still doesn't solve the customer experience problem in its entirety, right? There's still scope to do better. And why is that? What you've essentially done with plain and simple digitization is that you've taken all the physical touch points that you had in the process, and you've replaced them with an equivalent number of digital interfaces, right? Now the customer needs to still figure out where exactly he's supposed to make the payment. Is he supposed to make the payment through the website? Is he supposed to receive a payment link on email or SMS or WhatsApp to make the payment? Is he supposed to make the payment inside your customer's app, inside your mobile application, right? So those are the interfaces that still exist. After paying, the customer still needs to figure out how to e-sign the document, right? Maybe the customer thinks after paying or e-signing that, yeah, my job is done. But unfortunately, he needs to complete the entire process, right? So there's a lot that remains to be done in terms of the customer experience. And that's where we come in with Leegality Payment Collect, right? It's not enough to just digitize, you need to digitize the right way. Right. Now let's talk about, could you just rewind back to the previous slide, Aditya? Yeah, just a couple more points, right? Now, let's say you've digitized, right? You still have a lot of problems which are listed out here. Number one, you still need to manage multiple integrations, right? You need to make sure that your payments works on your website. You need to make sure your payments works on your Android app, on your iOS app. It works through payment links. Every time there is an upgrade to the Android or iOS ecosystem, you need to make sure that your payments are not breaking. You need to have a system for reconciling payments with your documents. You need to integrate an e-sign application into your flow as well, right? So there's a lot of coordination, there's a lot of integration effort, right? Which is why we feel that there is something to be done here to make the entire experience better, right? You still need to do things like send manual reminders to your customers to pay documents, right? Which is point number 3 on this slide here. You need to manage refunds with the customers. Let's say the customer pays you, but then sees that there's some issue with the document and doesn't want to sign and go ahead any longer, right? Then you have to have a whole customer touch point to generate the refund, make sure the customer has got the refund, etc. Right? So there are a lot of variables to manage the customer relationship appropriately. And to solve all of these problems, right, there is a very elegant solution that we are now bringing to the market, and that is Leegality Payment Collect, right? Now, how does this work? Before we just step into the demo, Aditya, could you just rewind back to the slide which sets out the flow? Yeah, perfect. Thanks. Yeah. So the elegant solution to all of these problems is a single unified flow for making payment and collecting signatures. All of it happens in one flow. The customer doesn't need to look here or there, right? So let's just go over all of these 4 steps. First, somebody from the company side creates a request for e-signature and a request for payment. You just need one person to do this. You don't need an army of people. The customer gets a link, whether that's in your app or your website or through an email or SMS, whatever it is. The customer gets a single link. Customer can look at the document, see that everything is okay. Then the customer can go on and pay the amount, and then the customer just signs the document. It's just a simple, seamless, single flow. Customer doesn't really need to bother about where do I pay, where do I e-sign, none of that stuff. And once all of this is done, the signed document along with the payment status is sent back to all the parties concerned, right? So you get real-time notifications for both the payment as well as the e-sign, as well as the signed document and the audit trail, right? So that's the proposal here. That's the solution that we are bringing to the market. Aditya, could you move to the next slide? Yeah. So before we just jump into the demo, right, just a quick word on what you need to really use payments within our flow, right? If you are an existing Leegality customer, you don't really need to do a lot. All you need is a payment gateway account, which is KYC verified. This is a real simple process, and it's completely digital, right? Can be completed in a couple of days. And once you have your payment gateway account, you just need to link it with your Leegality account, which is a simple 2-click process, which we'll see in the demo, right? So you don't need to do anything major to start using Leegality Payment Collect. It's really as simple as a couple of clicks. Okay, so now that we have our bases covered, let me just do a quick demo. Is the legality dashboard visible?
Yep, it
Yeah,
is.
okay. So as I mentioned, the prerequisite to using this is you need to link your payment gateway account with your legality account, right? So the starting point for that is this dashboard. What you need to do is, and this is something that an admin user from your organization will have to do. Go to department, go to the payment collect feature, right? Choose which gateway you want to link. Currently, we've partnered with Razorpay. But if you have other payment gateways, we are happy to have a chat with you. Choose the payment gateway, which is currently Razorpay, and click on link account, right? When you click on link account, you will be taken to a authorization page hosted by the payment gateway concerned, right? So here, Razorpay is asking you to share your account access with legality, right? All you need to do is agree to share access and authorize, right? If you're not already logged in, you'll just have to enter your password or do an OTP authentication and you're ready to go, right? Now, once you've clicked on this, our systems will talk to the Razorpay systems, and bingo, the payment gateway is linked. The status of the linkage is activated, and you can now go ahead and enable payment collection in your journeys and click on update, right? So this is a one-time process that needs to be done by somebody who is an admin user in your organization who also has access to your Razorpay credentials. Once you've done this, you're all set. Right. Now, let's say you want to.
I think an important thing is what we were talking about earlier, where in an ordinary digital flow, you'd have to juggle both integrations. Whereas here in real time, it literally takes 2 minutes. What Sid showed you on screen is what the same amount of time it will take you, probably less because Sid was being a bit slower so that everyone could see. Right. The multiple integrations that you need to do is just eliminated completely.
Precisely. Yeah. Cool. So once you have that really easy setup out of the way, you can now start sending invitations which include payment requests in addition to e-sign requests as well. Right. So let's say we have a loan agreement and I want to get this signed from a customer called Sidhanth. Enter their credentials. Right. Okay. I can choose any signature type I want. Payment collections are compatible with most signature types here. The only real significant exception is NESL, but that's not really material here. And all you need to do is enable this toggle for collecting payments. Right now, what you do here is you specify what amount you want to collect. Right. So in an integration flow, if you are doing an API integration with us, all of this will be passed through an API payload, right? So you don't actually need to manually take the effort here. But if you're in for a really quick implementation without an API integration, and this is how you can do that. Right? So you enter the payment amount. Let's say I've put a stamp duty of 100 rupees on this paper, and I want to collect that from my customer. I enter the 100 rupee amount here. I can also add a custom message so that your customer knows what exactly they are being charged for. Right. So, for example, I'm collecting the stamp duty amount here. So I'll say something like, please pay INR 100 towards the stamp paper attached to your loan agreement. So now I've saved that message.
Sidharth, one question.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so if I want, say, my finance department, payments are often managed by, say, a different department who needs to keep track of payments, whereas one other department needs to keep track of document execution. Is there a way I can keep them in the loop, or do they need to log into Razorpay and just manually weed out the payments form?
No,
like
absolutely. I think that's a very relevant question, Aditya, and that's one of the key value propositions that we add by allowing payments within a document infrastructure suite, which is you can keep any team member in the loop with real-time notifications, right? You don't really need to manage that offline or separately, right? So for example, let's say I have a finance guy in my team who I want to loop into this process. So I create a copy of a notification, right? Or CC as we call him. Right? So we have a finance guy here who's roped into the process, right? Now,
and I can select two different guys, right? Like one finance guy for the payment notification and someone say from my compliance team for the document signing notification.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Right. So so once you've done all of that, this process is something users of Leegality would be familiar with. You set coordinates in your agreement, take a look that everything is okay, and then click on the send button. Right. Now we land up on the details page. Now let's see what happens to the customer. Right. The customer has received an email in this case with a signing link. Right? This is something that the customer would be familiar with. A document preview, they can take a look at the agreement to see that everything is kosher, it's in line with their expectations, nothing is wrong. There are no issues like spelling mistakes, etc., which can cause issues later. Right? Once they
And
are satisfied
an important clarification, this can happen through phone as well. So they can receive it on their phone or on your own application. It through an API integration, you can have this appear on your own application without them having to go to an email or mobile phone.
Perfect. Yeah, okay. So the once the document has been previewed, the customer clicks on next and they get a request for payment. Right now, this page again carries your branding, right? So the logo of the customer will appear on the left. There's a message here as well saying that please pay INR 100 towards a stamp paper attached to your loan agreement. So the customer knows contextually what exactly you're asking payment for, right? The customer has a lot of other information here. Customer is being told that payment details will be sent to this email ID and this mobile number. The customer is also told that if you don't sign within a particular time period, which is 5 days, then the amount paid will be reversed. Right? So your customer is getting all the contextual information necessary to successfully and confidently pay the amount here, right? Without necessarily calling somebody from your team to ask clarifications, right? Customer clicks on pay online, and then the payment window opens up. Right now, again, the payment window here would carry your brand's custom logo, your name, etc., and your brand's colors. So the customer's trust is maintained here. The customer doesn't feel like he's paying somewhere where he's not comfortable. Right, this is really comfortable for the customer. You can completely choose what options the customer sees here. Right, so if you want to limit the customer to only a few payment methods, then you can configure that on your payment gateway dashboard, and only those methods will be visible here, right? So this is completely up to you what configurations you want, right? You can have credit cards, UPI, Paytm, any wallet that you want. You can have BNPL options as well, pay later services, whatever's available within your payment gateway account, right? So let's pay by card here. This is your standard payment checkout process. And after the OTP is entered, the payment is successfully completed, right? Now at this stage, what we do is we send the payment details to the customer so that the customer is abreast of what has happened, right? The customer is kept in the loop at all times, right? So customer gets a mail like this or an SMS like this saying that you have paid this much amount in connection with this document that was requested from you, right? Now, if you remember, we also copied our finance guy. So the finance guy should also receive a notification, right? So here, the finance guy has received a notification saying, hi finance guy, XYZ person has paid INR 100 in connection with the document, right? So you're seamlessly keeping all members of your organization in the loop and reducing your operational overhead.
And this payment ID here, it's the payment ID on the gateway, right? It's not a Leegality generated payment ID. So they can reconcile it on their gateway with the same ID.
Absolutely. They have full power and visibility over that payment ID on the payment gateway's dashboard. And they can track it for reconciliation purposes, for tracking refunds, etc. Cool. So now the customer has successfully completed payment. Customer can proceed. It's a seamless journey. Customer enters the OTP now for e-signing. Customer draws their signature. Now this part of the journey can be different depending on what kind of e-sign has been used. Gives consent. And that's it. The document is complete. So in a single flow, in a few minutes, the customer completes payment as well as e-signs the document. Everyone in the ecosystem is notified simultaneously, right? And logs are generated which help you in reconciliation as well, right? So let's see how the logs look like here, right? Now on the legality dashboard, you will be able to see your payment logs. This allows you to see for this document what was the payment ID, what is the status of the payment. You can also see your account-wide activity logs, which will show you at what time the payment was made, what time the payment was authorized, and what time the payment was captured, right? So the entire payments chain is visible to you on a real-time basis for tracking and reconciliation, right? Now, what we've also done is we've integrated our systems really tightly with the payment gateway, so that if you decide to issue a manual refund to the customer from the Razorpay, from your Razorpay or your payment gateway account, then that updated status gets reflected in the logs as well, right? So whatever you do with this payment, the customer will always be notified by legality. You don't really need to worry about anything, right? So those are the few things that we wanted to cover as a part of the payment journey itself. Now that we have the demo out of the way, I also wanted to quickly cover how the funds flow works, right? Now, in terms of the funds flow, what happens is when the customer first pays the money is deducted from the customer's bank account and then goes and sits in a pooled account, which is controlled by the payment gateway. And it is only when the customer signs the document that the money hits your bank account, right? So you get the money when you know that everything has been definitively closed successfully. You have the agreement, you have the money in your bank account, right? So the settlement timeline is a T+2 standard settlement cycle. 2 days after the successful e-sign, you should have the funds reflecting in your bank account, right? Now, if for any reason the customer fails to e-sign the document and 5 days have elapsed since they actually paid the amount in question, we will automatically refund the money to the customer, right? So that's what we mean by automated refunds, right? So all of these processes just make your life really, really simple. You don't really need to manage any of these things manually or separately. Any questions on the demo? Or Aditya, do you want me to cover anything else specifically?
Not on the demo. I think that was a great demo. I think it's a pretty simple flow. But if we receive any questions, we can answer them at the end.
Sure.
I think you mentioned some of these benefits already, but are there any other benefits you want to specifically cover that didn't get covered in the demo?
Sure. So I think it's just worthwhile to go over all the benefits just once again, right? I think number one, you get paid instantly, right? You don't need to really follow up with customers. Everything happens seamlessly the moment the payment is made. On a T+2 checkout basis, you receive the funds, right? You don't need to manually follow up. You can trigger reminders directly from your legality dashboard or using our APIs. And a single reminder tells the customer both to pay as well as to e-sign, right? There is no overhead to manage refunds. Refunds are again managed automatically. I think one important point here is that there is no step in this process where the money actually comes to legality as a third party, right? So the billing relationship with the customer is entirely yours. The money directly goes from the customer's bank account to your bank account, right? With an intermediate step where it's in a pooled account for the gateway, which is always the case, right? But the funds flow remains exactly the same as if you had your own integration in place, right? So nothing really changes here from an invoicing or taxation perspective for you, right? So this is something that will be very easy for your finance teams to approve, right? The other thing to mention is you can get paid multiple ways. We saw that you could use BNPL, you could use any wallet that is supported by your gateway, net banking, UPI, Google Pay, whatever it is, you have entire and complete control over this process, right? Reconciliation of finances is another major benefit of this process. Your payment IDs are always tracked against a document ID and a customer now. You don't need to manually reconcile at all going forward, right? And lastly, all of this is supported through our low code, no code integrations. You really don't need a separate payments integration at all. All the hassle of maintaining compatibility with various apps, OSs, and upgrading them goes out of the window. Just save most of your settings in a workflow, and you're ready to roll out an API integration in a few lines of code, right? So yeah.
And I think important part is 6 months down the line, you made the integration and you need to change the payment because your rates have changed or the payment amount you have to collect has changed, right? So what Sid showed on the dashboard, you literally, when you're creating the integration, you simply click save and pass the workflow ID. And when you want to make changes, you simply, as Sid showed you in the demo, go into the workflow, go to the payment collect component in the workflow and simply change the amount there. Right? So you don't need to call your tech team again 6 months down the line if you need to even change the payment parameter. Your business or ops team can do that directly through the dashboard. And I think fitting in with our theme of eliminating all integration friction when it comes to both payments and documents. So where can payment collect be used, right? And we receive a lot of specific questions. Can it be used for this use case? Can it be used for this use case? Ultimately, you can use Leegality Payment Collect for any commercial paperwork transaction that also is coupled with collection of a processing fee of any kind, right? Or any fee of any kind, right? Be it stamp duty, credit card application fees, account opening fees, loan processing fees, service fees, you name it, right? Like this is just an illustrative list, not an exhaustive list, right? Just think back to the days when you were doing physical payment collection or digital payment collection coupled with physical documentation, right? Any flow where you just need to get that document signed and collect the payment, and you want that headache to be solved in one unified flow, right? That's why payment collect can be used. That being said, we'll cover two illustrations, right? One is there are cases where you have to collect payment in relation to that document execution itself. Like, for example, when you're collecting stamp duty, right? The stamp duty collection is pertaining to the document execution itself, where you're collecting some money from the customer for the stamp duty being paid on that execution. With Leegality Payment Collect, it's super simple, right? You can collect variable stamp duty, you can collect fixed stamp duty, you can collect any amount of stamp duty without really any material changes to your existing document execution journeys, right? Customer can pay that stamp duty and e-sign the document within 2 minutes. At max, it's adding maybe 30 seconds to your flow. But there's another scenario where payments are not really linked to documents, but it's a flow you want to couple together for convenience, right? Like, for example, when you're onboarding merchants, right, you often need to collect a processing fee or an onboarding fee, right? You simply fix that onboarding fee amount in your workflow or have it changeable by your field officers on the ground. And the vendor can simply pay the onboarding fee and sign the document within 2 minutes on the same flow. So you're really accelerating the onboarding process, where before payments and documents were two separate, severable, and really separate. I mean, I already said it, but separate parts of the process. With payment collect, they actually become one and the same, which gets completed in a unified flow within 2 minutes. So that comes to our offer. We're running a free trial of payment collect, right? You can use Leegality Payment Collect without paying any additional subscription amount from June 24th to September 30th, right? To activate your free trial, if you are a Leegality customer, contact your success manager today or simply email us at support@leegality.com, right? Leegality Payment Collect is already live in your dashboard. So technically the trial is activated for you in any case, but I'm guessing you'll need some help in just maybe a customized demo or generally recapping what the feature does. So please contact your success manager or email us at support@leegality.com, and we'll be happy to get your free trial up and running as soon as possible. If you are not a Leegality customer, you can get Leegality Payment Collect bundled in with any subscription amount you choose, provided you do this between June 24th and September 30th, right? Simply email us at enquiry@legality.com or visit www.legality.com/payment collect for details, where you can see things about the feature. You can see a recording of this webinar. You can see a demo of the feature, right? All the information you need about the features on that page. And there's a form where you can tell us that you want to integrate with Leegality and Leegality Payment Collect. Right. Sid, is there anything you want to add before we sign off?
Nothing right now, Aditya, but keen to know if there are any questions from the audience. I think we have a few clients and prospects in the audience as well, right? So.
I think one question we had received earlier was about how easy is it to, so supposing they're using a different payment gateway, one, are we going to integrate with their payment gateway? Two, if they want to take the Razorpay payment gateway, how easy is that process?
Aditya, could you just repeat that, please?
Yeah. Supposing they're using a different payment gateway,
Yeah.
what happens then? Two, if they want to get Razorpay payment gateway for this process, how do they go about doing that?
Sure. So I'll answer the second question first. To get a Razorpay account, all you need to do is sign up and create an account on their website. Right? It's a completely digital flow. There is no physical touch point at all for that. All you need to do is just upload a few basic business documents like your GST number, an authorization letter, and your PAN number, etc. Right? Just to do some basic corporate KYC. And link your bank account. You just need to enter your bank account details on Razorpay, right? That's enough to get a standard account up and running. The entire process, depending on how smoothly your KYC goes, could take anywhere between a couple of business days to like 4 or 5 days, right? So give or take a week, I would say, to go live from scratch, right? So it's a really simple process. We can obviously put anyone who wants to explore Razorpay, we can put you in touch with their team as well. So that's a straightforward process, right? If you have another payment gateway, then all you need to do is number one, you need to explore whether you want to go live through Razorpay, right? As I said, the process there is really straightforward. So if that's the fastest way of going live right now with Leegality, right? Go get a Razorpay account created. You don't really need to do any extra effort in terms of maintaining an integration, right? But if you want an integration, then you'll have to connect us with the relevant payment gateway. It really depends on how strong the APIs are, etc. But that has to be taken on a case by case basis.
Another question we received is on security on payments data. What is our Leegality's oversight over the payments data? How much? What do we store? What do we retain?
Right. So that's a really good question, Aditya. There is absolutely no difference between this flow and a flow where a customer directly uses a payment gateway, right? All we are doing here is exposing that payment gateway's collection checkout process inside our application, right? The flow of data, the flow of payments data remains entirely between the customer who's paying the money as well as the payment gateway, and at the end with the customer receiving the payment as well, right? All we have access to are payment logs and the payment amount for reconciliation purposes. There is no other payment data like credit card data, for example, that is stored with us. It's not even received by us.
Right. And can they delete the payment logs? The logs that you showed, can they delete those logs?
No, those logs. So we don't have any payment related data to begin with, Aditya. It's not that like we have any credit card details or if a wallet is being used, which wallet was used. We don't have any of that data. The only data we have for logging is the payment ID for tracking purposes, but no corresponding data is visible to us, and the logs really are not visible.
Fair. Yeah. Another question is, does the payment get recorded in the audit trail?
It does, Aditya. The payment also gets recorded in the audit trail to serve as a single source of truth.
Great. Great, Sidhanth. I think that's all with the questions we received. If anyone wants to ask a question, you can raise your hand and we'll give you mic access. Yes, we have received a question. Pawan, so Rishit, can you please give Pawan mic access? Yeah, Pawan, you have mic access now. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Yeah, just a bit louder if you can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, actually, we are unifying, we are combining payment flow and documentation e-signing flow, right? So that's what demo has been shown.
Absolutely.
So like, I thought I heard we have an individual payment flow, like without unifying it in documentation flow. So we have an individual independent payment flow.
Right.
So that you people didn't show us, no?
So we don't have an independent payment flow. If is the question that do we have a way to just collect payments and not do documentation? Is that the question?
Yes.
No. So we are fundamentally document infrastructure. So our fundamental goal is digitizing the document and the paperwork process. What we found is that in the paperwork process, companies often included a payment process in the old flow, but with the digital flow, they couldn't do it, right? So the payment collect is simply a way to add payments to the document flow. And there's no independent support for just a payment flow, right? For that, you'd probably be better off going directly to the payment gateway. If it's just an independent payment flow, where payment collect comes in is where you want to get paperwork signed and payments done in a unified flow with basically no double integration, with no double integration and a unified experience for your customer. So that is the scope of payment collect. I
Okay.
hope that.
Yeah, that's fair. Got it. Thank you. Last question. So, what do you mean by payment dashboard? Like, what modules it consists of?
Sid, you want to take that question?
Pawan, could you help us understand a little bit more about what your question is?
When you tell payment dashboard,
Yeah.
what modules it consists of?
What do you mean by modules exactly?
What information, like payment recipient from whom money is collected,
The
when
logs.
that kind of information.
Right. So let me just screen share here. Aditya, hope my screen is visible.
It's visible.
Right. So this is the data that is collected here, right? I've highlighted here for ease of reference, right? So what we have is that some person paid INR 100 for this particular document, right? Now, when we talk about this name, this is the name to which and the email and mobile to which the invitation was sent originally by you from the dashboard. So this is the data we get from you. We get the payment amount and we get to know for which document this amount was collected, and we have the payment ID as well, right? So in terms of the payment data, all we have is the payment ID as well as the payment amount. Now this ID can be used for tracking purposes or for taking actions like issuing refunds on your payment gateway dashboard, right? So in your payment gateway dashboard, you can go to their logs and look for this particular payment ID. So this is your key to track the payment further if you so wish.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I got my question answered. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Pawan. Sidhanth, we received a question in chat as well. Are there so Shiva, do you want to ask the question like through mic, or like should we ask it like answer it on text? So the question is basically, are there any charges for each payment transaction apart from the payment gateway charges?
Right. So other than the payment gateway charges, there will be a small fee that Leegality will collect for facilitating the payments, right? For each payment that you collect from the customers. So there will be a charge that Leegality will also levy. And this is in addition to the charges that the payment gateway will collect. The payment gateway share is directly deducted from the amount paid by the customer itself, right? So if the customer is paying, let's say 100 rupees, depending on what rate you've negotiated with your payment gateway and which payment method is used, an appropriate amount would be deducted and kept by the payment gateway, and the rest will hit your bank account. Legality share is not collected from this amount itself, right? We will bill you separately for that amount, and that amount will be deducted from your e-sign wallet that you will have with Leegality separately.
Right. Shiva, hope that answers your question. If you have any follow-up, feel free to unmute and ask, or you can ask in the Q&A box as well. Great, thanks. All right, thanks Pawan, thanks Shiva for the questions. And thanks for everyone who emailed in the questions. Once again, if you're viewing the recording of this webinar, please feel free to reach out to Sidhanth or me anytime on LinkedIn or through our email IDs, which Rishit will drop in the chat below. Or you can email us at enquiry@legality.com or contact any Leegality POC you're already in touch with. Just a reminder, Payment Collect, we are running a free trial where you don't have to pay any additional subscription amount for Payment Collect from June 24th to September 30th. So do access Payment Collect, do try out Payment Collect. And remember, this free trial and payment charges are for the live production environment. In your sandbox, you can get access to Payment Collect without the transactional charges where you just want to test it out in sandbox flows. You can get that right away, right? So do try out Payment Collect, see how it works for your existing document flows, see what flows you can build now and imagine with payments and documentation in the same flow. And would be happy to connect with anyone who wants to build such flows. Sidhanth, once again, thank you. And thanks everyone who attended. Until our next webinar, signing off.